The ICJ case between South Africa and Israel has gone global, with Germany now in the firing line. Here's what's happened. So a lot has been happening in the ICJ case as of late. In a previous video last week, I explained how the United States decided to intervene in support of Israel. We also saw Fiji and Hungary do so after Paraguay became the first country to intervene on behalf of Israel in this case. But now it seems as if this whole ICJ proceeding is growing far beyond just this specific case, as now Germany has been roped in for their support of Israel. And all of a sudden, it seems as if this is a global battle where there are two enormous international alliances at war. But before we get into it, could I please remind you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already? It's absolutely free, and all you have to do is click on the subscribe button below the video. If you would like to enjoy some additional perks and support the channel, you can become a Power Club member. All you have to do is click on the join button below. Now let's get started. So a few days ago, Germany had to withdraw its potential involvement from the South Africa versus Israel ICJ case due to an ICJ case of its own. So as explained in this specific article, Germany, who was an early defender of Israel against allegations of genocide in Gaza, has pulled support as it faces its own charges for aiding Israel. Germany will no longer intervene on Israel's behalf, a spokesperson for the German Foreign Ministry told reporters on Wednesday. South Africa brought a genocide case against Israel in December 2023. The U-turn comes after the German government rejected South Africa's claims as baseless in January 2024, saying they amounted to political instrumentalization of the 1948 Genocide Convention, a treaty that outlined the crime under international law in the aftermath of the Holocaust. It said it would file an intervention on Israel's behalf. But when the deadline arrived this week, Germany was not among the countries weighing in. It said it could not wade in without compromising its own ICJ case filed by Nicaragua later in 2024 that alleges that Germany violated international law by supporting Israel in the Gaza war. So this is quite important because at the beginning of 2024, Germany decided to back Israel and say that there was no genocide in Gaza. But all of a sudden, a few months later, Nicaragua decided to bring forward this case. And it is also quite well known that Germany is one of the biggest supporters of Israel, both in terms of trade and arms. And we've seen how they have continued this relationship up until the present day. Now, you might be wondering why Nicaragua, of all nations, would be getting involved in this, and especially getting involved by taking Germany to court. And that's something that I'm going to shed light on in just a moment. But before we do, let's just see what the Foreign Ministry spokesperson said. So as Joseph Hinterseer said, we are now ourselves part of a contentious case before the ICJ and have therefore decided not to make use of this option. The ICJ turned down Nicaragua's request for emergency measures against Berlin, but allowed Nicaragua's case to proceed. Among other demands, Nicaragua called for Germany to halt arms shipments to Israel and resume funding for UNRWA, a relief organization for Palestinians. Germany joined several other countries in cutting support for UNRWA after Israel alleged that hundreds of its employees were members of terrorist organizations, but later restored funding after an independent review did not find sufficient evidence for Israel's claims. Germany's failure to file an intervention on Israel's behalf means that Israel is without the support of one of its more stalwart European supporters. Germany is Israel's second largest weapons supplier after the United States and has rarely criticized Israel's prosecution of the war. It lifted a partial arms embargo on Israel in November. So as I've previously explained, we are going to now take a look at why Nicaragua may have been involved in this. And what we see is that Nicaragua has actually become one of the more recent members of the Hague Group. So just to remind everybody, the Hague Group is a collection of countries that have decided to take on Israel in the legal department. So basically to incite lawfare against Israel. And what we saw is that an emergency meeting was held in March 2026, whereby Nicaragua was actually a member, and we can see their flag right there. Now, it's really important for us to understand is that the dates that all of these things have been happening are no coincidence. You see, as I previously explained, Germany had decided to air their decision to support Israel in the ICJ case, and soon after, Nicaragua decided to file a case of their own against Germany. We then saw how the latest Hague Group meeting took place on the 4th of March, and that was right slap bang in the middle of the ongoing war, when, of course, Israel and the US are distracted because they are fighting against Iran. And what's really important for us to note here is that it seems as if there is this global alliance within the Hague Group that is hell-bent on not only taking on Israel, but actually the entire network of Western powers and even non-Western actors who are supportive of Israel. So, what seems to be happening here is that South Africa, or rather the ANC, has decided as the co-chair of this group to continue siding with these weird rogue nations such as Nicaragua, such as far-left governments in Colombia and Cuba and Venezuela, and of course Islamists in Iran and Russia as well, against the United States and Israel and other Western allies. But while many people would view this as being an East versus West fight, it's not actually true, because after all, Israel is a very strong US ally, as is Japan, South Korea. Turkey is a little bit of a questionable one, but they are part of NATO. And then, of course, you have the likes of the Gulf Arab nations who are supportive of the US and who are against what Iran is doing. And of course, you even have India, who is one of the main partners of BRICS, who has a very positive relationship with Israel. It's also important to remember that in the week before the war started, Narendra Modi, the leader of India, actually visited Israel and spoke of the great friendship that he has with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And of course, there were actually 16 trade deals that were signed between the two countries. And so ultimately, it seems that what is actually going on here is that the ANC and its partners have decided to basically take on what I would call the free world. You know, those sorts of countries with Judeo-Christian values who prioritize freedom, who are very much in favor of countries such as the US and Israel. And I really can't understand why they think that this is a good idea. Ultimately, a lot of the countries who they're aligned with are these third world countries, struggling countries. We've seen how even the so-called major players such as Russia and Iran are embattled at the moment, and they're actually being dealt great blows in their respective wars. And ultimately, no good will come of this for South Africa. Hopefully, the vast majority of people who are wide awake and see what the ANC is doing and see how it is destructive to South Africa will ultimately become more politically active and realize that people need to vote differently by the time that the next election rolls around. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to subscribe to the channel for more content. Until next time, I'm Matthew Cohen, and this is the Power Pod.